Alright, I want to start talking about ecology because this is another area that I know something about, and I'd like to cover some information on it because I don't know if anybody's actually out there covering ecology in depth other than, like, say, an introductory biology course. So here's what I would take from, like, your first chapter. This is the basic information for, and that's why I called it ecology basics, for anybody to understand some basic definitions and some basic concepts that help you to get, in tune with what's going on here. So, organisms interact with their environment in the context of an ecosystem. Okay, and the ecosystem consists of two main components: the living, or what they call the biotic, and the physical, or the abiotic. So the physical being the environment, the abiotic environment, functioning together as a system. So the ecosystem consists of both of those parts, and they function together as a system. Okay? And organisms of the same species that inhabit a given environment make up a population. So this is another important term that you're going to see quite often in this class. We're going to talk about a population. So organisms of the same species that inhabit a given environment make up a population. So the key there is that they're organisms of the same species and they inhabit a given environment, so a specific place, a specific location. And populations of different organisms interact with members of their own species as well as members of other species. Now that's totally intuitive because we know that, in any ecosystem, in any environment, there's all different species of all types of plants, all types of animals living in most of these places. So of course there's going to be interaction among the different species. And these interactions range from competition to predation to mutual benefits. They can actually work together. I mean, there's plenty of examples in botany where certain plants form, mutual arrangements together where they give some nutrients or something, and in return they get some other benefit that helps them with reproduction and survivability. So interacting populations make up living or biotic, or the living or biotic community, which I talked about. So the interacting populations make up this living community or biotic community. A community is all the populations of different species living and interacting within an ecosystem. So the community is all the populations of all the different species living and interacting within an ecosystem, okay? So that's a community, another important term. You need to know what a community is, at least in the context of ecology. The community plus the physical environment make up the ecosystem. So that's basically what we said, was that the community, we said that the biotic, or at the beginning that the living or biotic system is made up of interacting populations, okay? And interacting populations are just, are communities, okay? So the community plus the physical environment make up the ecosystem. And here's just a little bit on some experiments. I mean, this is something else you might see in an introductory chapter where they talk about forming hypotheses and some of the different methods that ecologists use to gather data. So experiments begin with the formation of a hypothesis. So we know that. That's like a very educated guess in layman's terms. You think about this. You think about a situation. You maybe read some other literature. Maybe you read some other information, and then you decide to form a hypothesis based on that. And the ecologists perform both laboratory experiments and field experiments. So not everything is done in the laboratory. In a lot of other sciences, a lot of the work is done strictly in the laboratory, and like I could think of maybe physics or something like that, where a lot of the work is done strictly in the laboratory and not much of it's done in the field. At least on the theoretical end. But they have, for an ecologist, it's both laboratory and field studies. And for research data, ecologists develop models. And models are abstractions or simplifications of natural phenomenon. So all a model is a simpler way of looking at a system. So we have some system, we want to analyze it, but we want to simplify it as much as possible. I believe Einstein said we should make everything as simple as possible, but no simpler. So we want to make it as simple as possible. And the individual organism forms the basic unit of ecology. Okay, so it's actually the individual organism that forms the basic unit of ecology, and it is the individual that responds and interacts with the environment. So it's the individual that responds and interacts with the environment, and it's also the individual that passes its genes on to the next generation. So the individual forms the basis, okay, is the basic unit of ecology.